Hello and welcome to ALCA's Aging Life Care Moment. Today we are talking to members to hear about how they got started in their aging life care practice, but also diversity issues within ALCA and the care management industry. Today we are talking with Rebecca Montano, owner of Aging Focused. Rebecca, welcome, and tell us, how did you get started?
Thank you for having me, Courtney. So I got started, I used to work as a rehabilitation counselor in various realms, and I always really just kind of gravitated to my older adult clients, mostly like brain injury, stroke, that sort of thing, and just kind of kept moving my career forward until I started attending Alzheimer's Association meetings, quite frankly, because my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and there was an educator there that said, "Why aren't you a care manager? Why aren't you an aging life care manager?" And I was like, what is that, right? So never heard of it, had been in social services industry for, gosh, 20-ish years at that point, and started investigating it. She connected me with a couple of members from ALCA, and that's how I entered the profession, made a transition.
Well, that's great. I love hearing about the different backgrounds that people come into this practice with. And so you met some aging life care members, members of the association. Is that when you joined the association?
I did.
It was right away? Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I've been a member since 2007. So this will be my 14th year as a member. And it all just came by asking the right questions and seeking out additional education, wanting to transition in my career to something that was more along my alley of interest. And I was fortunate to find it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know that you're out in California, and the Western chapter just had a conference. I'm sort of leading you to our question around, diversity within ALCA and the association, and I'd love to hear you just talk about that some more.
Sure, absolutely. So we had an amazing conference this past year, and one of the sessions that we had was on diversity and cultural diversity within our practice, but also out in the community. And we had a great panel, myself and a couple of my colleagues from different cultural backgrounds, and we talked about kind of what are our challenges, as a professional, what do we see in our communities, kind of what led us here. And the question always comes up, like, how do we get more people involved? How do we get a more diverse cohort group in aging life care management? And that is always the question, right? How do we do that? Because we have amazing social workers, nurses that are of all different cultures and backgrounds in the community in general, but they tend to always opt for the usual types of jobs. So whether it's hospital jobs, whether that's, child protective services, whether that's domestic violence, whether that's, you name it. And I think part of it, there's two parts to it. One is getting the information to the schools, getting the information to the communities that our profession exists. I think that, I fell upon it by luck, honestly. Had I not not that it's lucky to have a grandparent with Alzheimer's, but had I not been trying to learn more to help my mom care for her, I wouldn't have stumbled across this industry. And I would probably still be working with, brain injury and stroke patients. So it's part of it is getting the information out to the communities, getting out to universities who are providing that education to social workers, nurses, etc. And another part of it is really also promoting what we do in the community at large. We talk often about the challenges that those of us with culturally diverse backgrounds have in the community. And you and I touched on it a little bit in our earlier discussions about, does a family want to have a Mexican American, African American, a Chinese American taking care of their parent? And I think really emphasizing more our professional backgrounds, our code of ethics, our standards of practice as ALCA members takes that away. I mean, that is really why I joined. I joined ALCA because as a sole practitioner, it gave me a place for, you know, a code of ethics and standards of practice. It gave me a group of colleagues who were doing what I was doing, where I could learn and staff cases and go for help. And I think that would, in my opinion, just general public people who are learning about our profession as consumers, them understanding it's not whether I'm a Mexican American Latina, whether my cohort is an African American woman or man for that matter, whether they're Chinese American, male or female, you know, LGBTQ, you name it, whatever their cultural difference is or diversity is, that we're still all professionals. And we all still have the education. We have all followed a standard of practice and a code of ethics. We all meet to learn together, to problem solve together. And it is not a matter of what ethnic or cultural group we belong to. And I think taking that same message into our education forums, formal education, meaning college and even trade schools for that matter, getting people interested is helpful, because I can say from my own personal experience, my mom was my grandmother's caregiver. Well, all my grandparents actually. She became my dad's caregiver. I became the non-paid care manager. And no matter how much I tried to hire a care manager where they lived, they all came back to me because, one, it was not having a stranger come into our home because that was a cultural issue, not trusting anyone else to take care. So there's just a lot of education that has to happen, not only to schools and communities, or I'm sorry, schools and training programs, but also communities and cultural groups as well. So
Yeah,
I hope I answered your question.
yeah, that's a great
Long-winded.
point. You know, that we can certainly do more outreach as we're working on to the universities and for education, but there's also, you know, cultural elements that we need to look at to really have our diverse care managers, aging life care managers hired by families.
You know, I have one of my godchildren is, she's Latina. She just got her master's in social work, really bright girl. My stepdaughter is biracial, African American and Caucasian American. And both of them, I tried to, like, you know, gear them this direction, right? And my stepdaughter's started off in nursing, but she's just now doing general sciences. But either way, both of them said to me, like, who's going to work with me? Right? I look different. I look ethnic. I'm a person of color, and they're not gonna trust me. And so that, I think, is part of our, right now, I think the question across all of our culture. I mean, it's a normal question right now in our country, and that has to change. And where it changes, I don't know, but the conversations have to happen.
Right. Yeah. There's lots to be done everywhere. And we in ALCA, we can do our part by, like you said, having these panels, having the conversations, and highlighting you know, all the kinds of members that we have. So to bring in new members and to show this this colorful face to potential clients.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so Rebecca, tell us a little bit about, as a person of color and with a diverse background, what's your biggest challenge?
So I think my challenge, I think, is a little bit different than some of my cohorts who look more like the culture that they come from, because a lot of people think I'm Italian, they think I'm white, they don't think that I am Latina, and I have to do some explaining there. But once that does come out, once that is revealed, sometimes you will see clients or families kind of doing the, oh, how long has your family been here? And it's very interesting because my family's been here before the state I was born in and the state that I live in even became states, but that's a whole other story. And then I will have sometimes people pause, sometimes people don't care. I have one client currently that says, you're an exception because you were educated. You're not one that poured over the border and is, you know, taking over welfare system or whatever his complaint is of the day. And that's hard to hear. It's hard to hear and hard to not be resistant and still just brush that off and continue as a professional, which we will always do, obviously. I've talked to some of my other colleagues who are also people of color with diverse backgrounds, and they often face the same issues. Like, why would we choose, say, an African American or a Latino, a male person of Hispanic descent, versus someone like you, or versus your cohort who isn't Mexican, Latino, or African American. So it is a challenge, because I think that the population age that we served, although there are many, many people that are accepting, it's not the entire population. There is a cohort within that that is, even though they'll say they're not prejudiced, they are, and they are saying racial things that are difficult. So I think that in some ways is a huge challenge, and it's how to let it roll off your back, know that it's either the generation or that person, and that we're still there to do the job that we're intended to do and do it professionally, which I know I and my colleagues always are. Take that step first.
Well, thank you so much for your
Sure.
time this morning.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. And, I guess it'll be to be continued.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
Okay.
you doing this.
Yeah.
We'll get the word out.
Mm-hmm.